not.
The outside for Zaxa is dirty at that because
Yeah.
he's here. And
In
he just pulls
Trento,
his
they
hands
were
behind.
in Trento, he was getting them a lot. Against Fenerbahce, the very, very last point, I say to Nimir and Tom, I'm like, dude, I'm pulling my hands. I don't pull my hands. I need to get way better at this because I like go really high and then I try and like pull my hands like just to protect like the straight down ball that if like somebody has that, like to protect straight down, but like so that the out of back, but I'm way higher than I think. They always challenge and I'm like, Jesus, why am I that high? I feel like I'm like barely jumping.
Booyaka! Welcome back to another episode of Can't Handle the Heat. It's your main boy, the G Swizz in the house. To my left, me in Deutschland. My brother Jokesy. Jokesy, how we doing?
Wicked. I'm doing
Wicked,
great.
man. You gotta make contact with the hand.
Wicked.
Wicked, man. We watch a lot of Ollie G show, so you're gonna hear a lot of that throughout the show. We've got a banger for you guys, and all the way, of course, in the southernmost part of Europe, we have the Micah. Micah, how we doing, brother?
Good brother.
Micah had a few big games. We're going to get into it in a second. Talk a little bit about the evolution of volleyball. But first, speaking about volleyball, I want to talk about our sponsors of this podcast, All Volleyball. Now, All Volleyball, what can I say? What more can I say about them? First of all, congratulations. You did it. If you're listening, you're getting 20% off. We're paying you to shop at the number one volleyball retailer out there. Guess what? You did it, 20% off. Use the promo code GWIDDY for 20% off. Joe, show them what a GWIDDY is. Can you get it really quick? Now, while I talk about this, I want Joe to GWIDDY the whole time. While I talk about this, I want everybody to be GWIDDYing while using the promo code GWIDDY for 20% off. Guess what? All Volleyball is the number one volleyball retailer out there, like I said. Now, let's say you're about to go to Nationals, right? Apparently, there's a little under 1,000 teams going to AAU Nationals. I saw that. You need to look sick. Guess what? Because the jersey trading is hot. And you need to have the best jerseys out there. And in order to do that, you need to get a new jersey. Let's be honest here. 90% of the jerseys out there aren't going to cut it. You're not going to trade anything. No one's going to want to trade with you. But guess what? All Volleyball has customizable jerseys where you can go in and you convince your coach or you convince your club director to get new jerseys so you do get that sick jersey that you want. So you do have the pop-in jersey. So when you lay that bad boy out, guess what? Everyone's be flocking to your station, and bam, you got yourself a trade, young man. Keep that in mind. Nationals is just around the corner, and guess what? There's no better jerseys to make than with allvolleyball.com. GWIDDY, Joe GWIDDY, for 20% off. Let's get in the show here. Joe, I want you to kind of kick things off here. The floor is yours.
Well, obviously, I think you mentioned it right at the beginning. We had it was a big week for professional volleyball. You've seen it on the college game. Also, a lot of teams are starting to get headed into playoffs as well. Final matches before they get ready for the NCAA tournament. But we're going to be focusing mostly on that professional volleyball side. This week we had Champions League semis. Our own Micah playing in a tough match this week against Ustrembia. He also had a really big win. Our team watched it actually in the team hotel against Fenerbahce last weekend. They pulled that one out. That was a battle. They were at 14-12, I believe, at one point. A lot of emotion in the match. They pulled that one out. Then they went to Ustrembia in Poland. And unfortunately, they didn't get the result that they needed to advance. They needed a 3-0, 3-1. I'll have Mike explain that briefly. But for anybody who doesn't know, on the other side of the bracket was Zaxa Perugia. Zaxa 3-1 both matches against Perugia, who didn't lose a single match in the Italian league season all year. And now they're on the brink of relegation. No, they're not on the brink of relegation, but they're on the ropes this weekend again against Milano. For anybody who keeps up with the professional world, it's crazy to see kind of where Perugia's at when they've been so dominant so long. So they got knocked out. Zaxa Ustrembia, Champions League final, all Polish Plus Liga final. And let's talk about really quick the significance of that. And Micah, I wanna give you the floor on this, speaking about where the Polish Plus League is at in the volleyball world right now, especially since you were just playing in that league last year, and then obviously competing against one of the top teams just in the past couple weeks.
Yeah, I think something that stood out to me was at one point, um, a bunch of us were at dinner and trying to discuss like who the like best player in the world is because Perugia has been not as dominant. And they're like, who do you guys think the best player in the world is? And I guess my comment was that it's not as important like anymore to have the best individual. And like that it's now like becoming a lot of best players in best systems, like within the system and how do they play within that system. Kind of like a Greg Popovich esque like form of volleyball or like Bill Belichick esque form of volleyball is kind of like um catching on and it's being led by the Polish, I would say. Um you can see Italy's national team also plays really good team volleyball, so I would say that they do it really well on the national team level. But it's not like the NBA where it's LeBron, Kyrie, like these stars, Curry, that can just go and like win games. I mean, don't get me wrong. You need to have very talented players to win championships, to win the Champions League. Like these teams that have the best players in the world, but it's the evolution of volleyball is like becoming a much more team oriented, system oriented space, and I think that's why the Plus Liga is like such a strong league. I think that they do that better than a lot of other places. And the Italian league has the names and the stars, but the Plus Liga just plays so well as a team. Their block and defense is just super disciplined, and then offensively they have a lot of balance, and so they're also really tough to stop. But yeah, I think the Plus Liga is proving right now that they're the strongest league. I mean, it's crazy to think that the Champions League final is between two teams that are third and fourth in a league, like in their domestic league, and you have two teams above them. Um, that's pretty insane. Granted, Bednorch has made a huge difference for Zaxa, and so they had a slower start, and now with him, they've found their groove. But still, for them and Ystrumbia to be third and fourth, and then in the Champions League, it's like pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a couple good points there, and biggest thing I would say too is like you talk about in Italy, all these clubs obviously um just go after and sign the biggest names. Like they'll sign, Leon. They'll bring in the international big name players and just pretty much throw them all onto a team and create kind of like these all-star teams. It's interesting now, like you think about it, with Italy being the world champion, how well they play together. Like, why aren't you PC? Like, you have some of the best players in the world, and they're a little bit spread out throughout the league. Why does a team just go in and bring in all the Italian top guys, like into one club instead of going out and going in internationally? But at the same time,
I
it's
think it would be really hard because it would just be a huge bidding war because you technically need three Italians on the court.
Mm-hmm.
And so for one team to try and hog all the good Italians, I think would be really difficult.
No, but I think like a club like Perugia, who has the money to spend on guys, like they can outbid anybody.
Yeah, but then what is the rest of the league like? Who are the Italians playing for other teams?
I agree, but if you're that club, you're not really concerned about.
Isn't that kind of what Trento's doing though?
They've done it in a small way. They still have other. I mean, they did have G.
They didn't do it though. They
Yeah,
actually like had the players before that they kind of arrived on the scene.
yeah. But in
Like they
terms
didn't
of
go and get Michieletto and like okay, Lavia came, but for Modena
yeah,
after, but Michieletto is there.
yeah. No, I was on the phone call with somebody like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, if you're looking to like have a kid watch a volleyball match and learning how to play volleyball and interested in watching a professional match, show them like a Zaxa Strumbia match and just show like how clean these teams play. It's just like it's such every like technical aspect they play with, and there's They're so good in coverage. They're so good in making decisions in difficult situations. Second touch, like first and second touch, is just at such a high level with those teams too, that they just create so many good opportunities. And they play like both those teams play. I would say more Zox plays with a lot of undersized players in certain positions.
Yeah.
But like you said, they get like the most out of it. And they've played together for a long time now. Some of those guys, and it's really like enjoyable to watch. And at the same time, you feel like just the Polish league is just so much, I don't know, further ahead right now than the Italian. Just seeing how the Italian league has performed this year, I don't know. The Polish league, I think at this point, just has from a team level, just has the higher level teams, and the style in which they play, I think, is a much more like team oriented, just design, I would say.
We
So
can dive into that a little bit too, like what that style looks like for people that aren't watching these games. I think block and deep. Also, it's so interesting that like I don't know how many years ago they didn't have film, and just like how important film is, because their block and defense is, if you're gonna try and do something repeatedly, they're gonna like make strong adjustments and make you make a change, you know? And so I think that one, they do that really well. Two, there's like in block, you'll like never see these guys making huge moves outside of their body. Um, they get their feet there really well, and they just go straight over. And almost all of their block touches are positive touches. Um, and so that's another thing that's um, the discipline in at the net, and then behind the net, like liberos playing um, really far into the corner and like huge shifts, almost like baseball shifts, um, which is very interesting, I think, to think about on high balls. And even in system, when Toniuti's front row, they're able to get their libero like past the corner, even further into six, and just scoop up so many balls like that. Um, and then offensively, like a ton of balance and a lot of like, yeah, a lot of tips, a lot of using the block, both for block out and for cover. I think that's like changing the game. Obviously, we've talked about this before, but um, to say it again, like all if you're playing at the highest level and Leon goes for a bomb or Namir goes for a bomb, it's on the line. Somehow these guys are so good at like just do not give up aces. They sprawl out, get the ball in the air. It's like 50 feet off the net. Somebody's sprinting after it, chucks it to the net, like we've talked about in our clinics, or if you listen to us. They play like a nice recovery shot into the block, and now they've taken Nimir's bomb and given us no advantage, and now they're playing with a free ball. And then they stick the free ball because they don't make mistakes on those types of things. And they play middle pipe. Like they play a lot of middle pipe in transition. And you're like so all over the place that you're not able to like reset the block, get really tight. And so that's just an example of like, and they did that a lot, man. Like in Ankara, we served our best. That was the best we've ever served. And they just handled us by just popping the ball up, giving no aces, and then just being really smart and out of system and throwing junk around and scoring with junk. And then when they needed to, play into the block and just always covering. And I think they did that better than us. We didn't also, we did some other things that weren't so great, but I think that's what showed for me at times was like we were trying to power through their block and they were just so good in blocking defense. And then um, they were like managing the high balls really well. So I think that's a huge evolution of volleyball is the block and cover. Um, and then the big shifts in defense and like watching film, and then speed obviously is always picking up to the pins, using the pipe, different routes in the middle. I don't know. What do you guys think about like what stands out to you with the evolution of volleyball in the last few years?
The creating opportunities, like that whole thing in offense, is nobody does it better than France and Poland. I think it started more in. Correct me if I'm wrong. Started more in France, and then obviously the Polish picked it up pretty quickly too, and they've gotten really good at throw. You even see it last night with Zoxa, like the throwing, like just like their whole mindset is okay. Like we're gonna create a better situation like out of this. We're not gonna give the ball away. Something we talk about on our team, like stop just giving the ball away. Like you just a 70% shot off the top of the block. That's unproductive rather than resetting the ball, covering. But the thing is, like you said, you can reset and recycle, and there's a lot of teams who do that. But the quality in their first touch after they do that is so important. Like you can just because you see it happen all the time, recycle, and you just end up in the same situation again because you just jack a ball like 15 feet off the net, and it's like okay, well then it was kind of almost not useless, but it was like
We got to do it again.
maximize potential of that. And then in blocking, I think I see this in the U.S. the most. The whole thing about reaching out of your body, sticking hands all over and stuff. And it's like you watch the Italian team who's won the world championship this year. You watch the Polish league, the Postliga. You watch like the best teams, especially in Europe, straight, disciplined, over the net, and you play defense behind that. It's way easier to play when you're reaching into stuff like you don't know for your backcourt. They don't know where to step into because there's a different seam every single time, different angles. Straight over, avoid the block out, really low like block out percentages, and force the guys to hit good shots. Because this is something I always say to our guys, like, dude, force this guy to have to hit a good shot every single time. I guarantee they'll hit it in the block. They'll make errors. Like even the best attackers in the world, they're gonna give you a couple. You see Leon last night, like Zoxa, just calm hands, and he's gonna spike into the block a couple times. It's like it's so hard to hit consistently good shot. You don't need to like make miracle plays because once you do that, then everything just starts scoring. And like that, but I see in the U.S. like so it's taught so much like reaching out and like it would kill like our assistant coach who was from Europe in college. It would kill him because he would see coaches teaching this all over. He's like, this is not blocking. This is just gambling. Like you're not. What are you trying to accomplish by this? And so I think watching these teams in block defense is a huge element, especially with the evolution also of the offense. Like, the defense has to catch up to that too. And the first solution is with all this throwing and off speed and recycles, guys want to chase with their hands and try to do stuff. And that's the worst possible thing you can do against that. Like, be calm. Okay, if they recycle, they recycle. Unless it's a clear situation where the ball's like under the net and stuff, then pull your damn hands.
That's something that I think also is like is going to be coming a lot more is the evolution of like blocking, decision making, of pulling hands.
Dude,
or
Slivka,
not.
the outside for Zoxa is dirty at that because he's here.
In Trento, they were like, in Trento, he was getting them a lot. Against Fenerbahce, the very, very last point, I say to Nimir and tell him like, dude, I'm pulling my hands. I don't pull my hands. I need to get way better at this because I like go really high and then I try and like pull my hands like just to protect like the straight down ball that if like somebody has that, like to protect straight down, but like so that the out of back, but I'm way higher than I think. They always challenge and I'm like, Jesus, why am I that high? I feel like I'm like barely jumping. And so I need to work on it. But we got lucky at we got lucky on that point because he went over me. He was a really physical guy. No, it was the opposite that came in. And then also the same thing against Jan in Lube after like it was like 12-12 and I kind of like did my version of a terrible pull and luckily he like missed my hands by like an inch. But I think that that's coming as well, and I think they're showing that like high hands has gotten like used more and more and more. I think now there's going to be a little bit of a counter to it.
Dude, it makes no sense to me why blockers like try to I mean, obviously I'm a short guy, so I'm like maybe I just don't have that perspective. But I'm like, dude, there's sometimes you don't even need to fully jump. If they're spiking, hitting that part of your hand, the ball's not in the court.
Yeah, I have a really hard time with that too, especially second line opposites. Like I hate that people jump high.
Yeah.
Like it's just you're giving them such a platform. It's so hard to kill these balls, like high ball from the second line from somewhere crazy. Like you just need to protect the court. Like get over like just your hands.
Just don't allow like the runway, full speed, like
Yeah.
straight ahead.
Yeah. Just get over your hands. Like triple block exactly how you were gonna do it. But don't freaking jump to this moon, please. That's his only solution is to hit block out. And if we're good behind like on our block touches and our tips, we should be defending like more than half of those balls or more. And these guys just bang high hands. And I'm like, why are we jumping so high?
And what like for better description, so you guys can see like what Mike and I are referring to is like just sealing the net. Like
Yeah.
I don't know for those people who are like teaching young kids and stuff blocking, like difficult situations, just sealing low on the net, like directly over your right above the net, and just don't allow the ball into the court. Down, like downward angle. If they spike deep, and that's where your defense. You need to train defense and be able to defend that ball.
Yeah.
But there's
and
more of
there's
a
going to be
disadvantage.
times that there's guys that go over and
Yeah,
like if you have the capability, then on those guys, if you know what they're doing, you just jump a little higher. But until they prove that they're going over and in the court, I don't think it's smart.
yeah. It's difficult to go over every like. People don't realize how hard it is to hit over in like that's like it's your main shot. Maybe you'll get like one ball. It's a nice location on a set. You
Oh,
just gotta
there's some
over it.
guys though. There's some guys, especially in like club. I can remember that there's some guys that are just going over because there's such a big discrepancy, like such a big difference in some players and other players. So physically,
Yeah. I don't
at
know. I
the
still think even in club, it's difficult for those kids to hit the ball in the court. Over and in the court consistently is tough.
trying to think of who's doing that. Sean Kelly. Have you guys seen Sean Kelly play?
Not
That guy's
recently.
going, that guy's going over.
going to USC or UCLA?
Shout
Where's
out
he
to
going?
Sean Kelly, baby.
That's
I think he's
also the
going to
biggest thing
UCLA.
for when junior like you said, like people always ask us the biggest jump, I guess, from juniors to college. I guess that would be like one of the big things. You're not really going over anybody in college, in in club. It's just like the physicality of players and stuff. Like, and that's one thing I guess in Europe that they're teaching at such a young age is dealing with the block, playing with the block, and like being comfortable to play with the block. Like in the U.S., I feel like there's so much
Oh, so
talk
much
about
avoiding.
like avoiding it, and like
Yeah.
here people are just they use it. They understand how like to get themselves out of difficult situations, and they train that at a young age.
Yeah.
Because they're also watching it over here too. That's the biggest thing I think. If you look at, if you're watching like college volleyball, you're starting to see more of it for sure, but not at the same level that you're seeing it like over here in Europe.
Yeah.
Like, you're still seeing guys just try to blast through high balls and not being a little bit more creative, I guess, in those situations. But I like you said, so many people. You have to teach the coverage too. The coverage is way just as important because I see so much teams can recycle and then they're not in a good situation after it.
Yeah.
And so
That's where we didn't cover very well all night.
and that's more
And I
about
think
being
that-
calm.
Yeah, it is about being calm too.
Like not
And
just-
expecting it and like but remaining calm. I agree.
you see just I think that's the biggest thing you see there, just like the freak out. It's like just even if you wait a little bit till the ball drops a little lower, like that's the biggest thing is people think they have to play the ball like when it's super just let the ball fall a little bit and like
Yeah.
and they forget that sometimes.
I don't think it. Jeez, sorry. I don't think everyone has that skill though. Too. I think that some people are just natural. So you say tweakers.
Yeah. Well, it's also position. It's like I'm just gonna call it as it is, like middle blockers who don't do a whole lot of like ball handling, and that's not really like the primary job. They're in the middle of a lot of coverages. Like they're on the net, and so their first job is to turn and cover. They don't get set. There's a lot of balls that fall in their lap, and teams like Zoxy, Strumbia, their middles are pretty effective in that. But also their liberos are just read the hands really well. Like once you get used to it and stuff, you read the hands really well, and you see how the ball's going to come off. You anticipate.
It's one of the hardest. I think it's one of the. Also, with this style of play, what's hard about it is that it takes away like a lot of the wind out of your sails. Like you get a solid block and like they get a ridiculous cover and then reverse the flow and tip it and kill it, and you're just like, oh, I thought we'd get that point. And then you get a bomb a serve and they do what they do, and like they frustrate you with like your service. They end up getting a kill with like this ridiculous tip, just like that just falls through the block, and you're like, and it's hard to like keep your head. And we had to talk about that like after the first set. It's like, guys, you can't let these points bleed out. Like they're gonna do things that frustrate us, and it's even worse when like you're still frustrated, and then they get another, and then they get another. It's like they're better at us than this, and we're not going to get better at it today. So when they do something that they're better at than us, like that's fine. We have to like move on to the next point. So I think also it's just frustrating. You can see it just suffocates a team. You're not getting easy things, and you make great plays, and they kind of save it and can turn it into a positive for them. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also another thing that I randomly thought of that's changed is serving. I feel like the hybrid is being used a ton. They had two guys using it. Their setter who came in and Klevno, and they both caused us a lot of problems. And so just the ability to do both, and Klevno was able to like hit with a lot of speed a jump serve and then like hit a float serve that's really slow and that like falls off, and you're just going to be really far behind on that, and it's really difficult to like stick that pass because you're kind of dug in, and then last minute he changes a float, but he's not driving his float where like it's landing in the same place that a jump serve would. You know what I mean? It's like that thing's falling down, so now you're like with your feet you're trying to catch up to a ball, and I think it caused us a lot of issues as well. And then, so that's another thing that I see.
Also, if you want to come and learn more about all these things that we are speaking about today, there's a few places you can come, and that is our out-of-system volleyball camps this summer. We have them in North Carolina, Iowa, and Northern California this summer. Check the link below. Sign up. They're going fast. Spots are going fast. We have a free coaches clinic as well. We're going to be talking about all these types of things, as well as bringing in college coaches, professional athletes to come speak on their experience and learning about all this different stuff in different systems. So, again, please, we are stoked for our camp series this summer. Please go check the link in the bio. We hope to see you guys there. Micah, a couple more things here before we wrap up. I wanted to add another note onto the transition phase as well, and whether it's in coverage or whatever. And we're focusing a lot on this. And I think guys, like people all the time in transition feel like they need to like speed everything up, but the faster you play the first touch, the slower the second touch needs to be. I think in transition typically, in most situations. And so I think a big thing too is like, with coaches focusing on the coverage and the first touch and free ball and stuff, play the ball high, and then from there give everybody like the ability to get on their routes. And I think transition is way more efficient and effective that way. And we've been experimenting with that a lot this week with our team. But that's another aspect too, is like control. Like the first touch needs to be high and played with control. And then from there, then everything can be fast from that point forward and aggressive, I'd say. I mean, there's definitely some situation you play the first ball fast and you kick it out, and it's like with a connection with a certain guy, maybe it works out and then you throw it. But like in general, in terms of like team offense, I think the best case, allowing your middles to get off the net, play the ball high, is such an
Yeah.
important part of it too.
Yeah, I like that.
What do you think? I think we've talked about this several times before, but kind of closing out everything, wrapping up the points that we spoke about today. What do you think are a few things that you've seen that just doesn't exist in American junior like development? I would say that, or doesn't get taught at all.
Hmm.
Or spoken about enough, maybe not at all, but just not spoken about enough. It's okay for Gage to answer too.
Honestly, on the boys' side, fundamentals, like I think that's why my club team was so successful, is that because we kind of played honestly a very similar style to like what these Polish teams are playing, because we were undersized and just super fundamental, and we would play into the block a decent amount, um, and like play smart and hit the corners and like not a lot of macho kind of stuff, which I think a lot of boys volleyball becomes about, like hammering the ball and like this game of physicality. So I think fundamentals, cover, off speed, attacking. That's what stands out to me.
We've said that before. Is like if you watch like even professional volleyball, you're like, I feel like there's a lot of players too that like, still like every day could benefit from a lot of like fundamental developmental work, and they didn't go through like type of training. Even like for Gage and I, like from our experience too, that was something that our dad is always, it's like just the super basics and just a high amount of reps when we were kids on all that stuff. Um, uh, in a little bit different way too, because I think we grew up with a lot of like our teams in general had more physicality than like Micah. When I mean physical, I mean just like height and like size and stuff.
Mhm.
And so it was like different players, and we would have guys come in for like a year or two, and they'd just be these like big athletes, and it's like, okay, like developing their skill, they were always behind like on the developmental like fundamental aspect of things. And so from a young age, I think you see like those kids who develop those skills in the long run, they benefit. And I think it's important to teach. This is one thing my dad always talked about: teaching stuff that they're gonna need to be able to do later on, rather than like what benefits them there in the short term. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. Like my dad was always big on that in terms of like systems and just mechanic stuff. Like, yeah, you could change things. And I'm trying to think of an example, but I just remember him speaking a lot about that. And and talking about like make sure you're teaching stuff that like helps them in the long run. I think that's super important.
But I think also there's a progression. Like for example, like we didn't even learn how to hit like short diagonal until 16, 17's year. Also, like we didn't play 6-on-6, so like a lot of our stuff was really broken down, and like so when we learned how to spike short diagonals just in hitting lines, they finally like allowed it, because it wasn't like allowed. Um, and so I remember like 16's year, we came and our assistant coach was like, "All right, we're unlocking a new shot," and we're just like, "Wow, this is crazy." And he's like, "All right, you're gonna try and hit like short diagonal around like 3 meters." And I remember like at first, Tui could do it really easily, Evan could do it, and I couldn't do it because I had just trained like my whole life just hitting to the corner, and it was just like a little bit more like around the ball, and I couldn't get this like straight action. And he's like, "You just gotta like picture it, like think of it as like," because I was scared that they would see me, and like I was so used to hitting long that they would block me. And he's just like, "You just gotta picture it like you go over a few times and they're gonna be reaching a little bit, like, and you've gotta like just beat them underneath. You gotta beat them underneath." And I was like, I just remember being so like oof, I really don't want to get blocked straight down. This seems so risky. I'd
Dude,
rather
but
just hit high corners.
that's a good point though, because even professionally, I see this. Like, yeah, there's a time to hit sharp cross, but understanding the time when to do that stuff is so important too. Like understanding like what situation, what you're gonna have, and I think guys like have the angles, but the sharp cross is like very specific times when you try to utilize that. But for the most part, spike deep, just deep into the
But that
ground,
was like a progression, like, like, and if your fundamentals are there, oof, you can teach things so easily. Because like you just like, hey, spike it there, and the guy can just put the ball where he needs to put it.
This is true. This is true. This is the way. And before we wrap up here, boys, just want to give another shout out to allvolleyball.com, number one volleyball retailer. As I said before, Nationals is coming up. And if you want to have the Swaggets jerseys, huh?
and all the gear.
Yeah, Swaggets jerseys, Swaggets gear out there. Guess what? You're competing
Also,
with 1,000 other teams. Yes, Micah.
also for all volleyball, I saw that they have a block simulator, and my sister recently became a coach, and she's like, hey, what do you want? And I was like, I think you should get. She's like, we don't have a block simulator at all. I'm like, well, you need that. Like every club overseas has that. Like before even the setting nets, you should have that. Somebody can catch the sets, but like you can't have people jumping every single time to try and play block hover. And so I saw them on there. If you don't have them, if you're a club and you want to start being successful and training kids to be able to succeed in college and overseas, get your block simulators on all volleyball with the code GWIDDY.
For 20% off. Exactly.
Is GWIDDY
20%
GWIDDY?
Yeah, Gwiddy. GWIDDY. It'll have it written below here. If you widdly want to be the best, you had to hit the Gwiddy with 20% off at allvolleyball.com. But like I said, doesn't matter what facet of the game you're interested in, they got it. So don't you worry about that link in the bio, 20% off. Use the promo code GWIDDY. Boys, always a pleasure hopping on with you guys. Micah, like I said, good luck with the rest of the season. You'll be seeing a lot more coverage of him as we send Faina, our lovely social media gal, to Turkey.
We're gonna be posting up all the links. We have semifinals start next Wednesday at home on Spontent Twitch. We'll be posting all the links for all the matches. Mike is getting ready for the Cup finals, playoffs. Everything's gonna be kind of coming to an end here. So pay attention to our Instagram. The wonderful Faina Zhang will be.
And just remember, if you can't handle the heat, grab the damn kitchen. This has been another episode presented by allvolleyball.com.